stared at the screen, the words still hovering in front of me, refusing to make sense. My thumb hovered over the message for a few moments, as if that would somehow change its meaning. I'm not coming back. I've met someone better and already moved your things to storage. The text hit me like a punch to the gut, the air around me thick and suffocating. And then, just beneath it, a screenshot. A bank transfer. $118,000, moved from our joint savings to her personal account. The money I had worked for, saved for, every hour spent buried in spreadsheets and financial reports now slipping through my fingers just like that. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter, my mind numb, my chest tightening with a feeling I couldn't place. I didn't even feel angry. Not yet. I just felt empty. The coffee cup in my hand suddenly felt too hot, too heavy. I put it down too, but the silence in the room was deafening. 15 years of marriage. 15 years that had just ended in 2 sentences and a screenshot. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I didn't. Instead, I finished my coffee. The bitterness tasted nothing like it used to. The overwhelming weight of betrayal felt so foreign, like it wasn't even mine. How had I missed the signs? The weekend getaways that stretched longer than they should have. The new clothes she never wore around me. The way her phone calls would stop as soon as I walked into the room. All those moments I pushed aside. All those warnings ignored. Maybe this was the mistake. Maybe I should have said something. Maybe I should have confronted her. But I didn't. I had stayed silent, too busy, too focused on work. I told myself that I was protecting our future. Instead, I had been blind to everything else. My mind started racing, all the pieces of my life coming apart. My wife. My money. The years of trust one had built, now shattered. What came next? I didn't know. All I could think of was that damn transfer, her words, and the life I thought I had. It was gone. Just like that. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, right in front of me. The small shifts in her behavior, the things I tried to convince myself didn't matter. Dana had become more secretive, locking her phone when I walked by, her conversations halting whenever I entered the room. I told myself it was nothing. She was just busy with the studio, the business. She didn't have time for small talk. I was busy too. We were both wrapped up in our own worlds. But now, looking back, it feels like I was lying to myself. I could see it all clearly now. Her new clothes, things she never wore around me. Weekend trips with her wellness community that seemed to stretch longer and longer, her Instagram blowing up with pictures of her in places I hadn't been invited to. I never questioned it. Not directly. I kept telling myself it was normal. It's what people do when they're successful. They travel. They get new things. They make new friends. It wasn't a problem. And my work, well, that was part of the distance. I'm a forensic accountant. Numbers are my life. The spreadsheets, the data, the endless analysis, it had always come first. Maybe it was easier for me to ignore the cracks in our relationship because my mind was always occupied with solving someone else's problems. But now I realized how much I had shut myself off from her too. I had become so focused on my work that I stopped paying attention to her. To us. I had seen the signs. I just never wanted to face them. The truth was too uncomfortable, too painful to acknowledge. So I dismissed it. I didn't say anything. I didn't push her. I didn't ask the questions I should have asked. And now here I was, alone, with nothing but the bitter taste of regret in my mouth. I should have known better. As a forensic accountant, I've spent my career analyzing numbers, uncovering hidden truths, and finding discrepancies where others wouldn't even think to look. It's my job to spot the cracks before they turn into chasms. But somehow, I let myself ignore the warning signs in my own life. When I opened my laptop that night, a part of me was already bracing for what I might find. My mind raced through the possibilities, the questions that had been simmering at the back of my mind. I had always kept an eye on our finances, but Dana had been getting sneakier. I'd seen some odd transactions here and there, small amounts that didn't add up. But I kept telling myself it was nothing, that she was just managing her business. Now, as I scrolled through the data, I realized how wrong I had been. Dana had been making moves, subtle at first but deliberate. She'd been securing her own financial future without me, setting things in motion long before I had any idea. Transfers to personal accounts I wasn't aware of, credit card charges for things I didn't know about, and even the creation of a few LLCs that I hadn't heard her mention once. It was like she'd been preparing for this moment for years, planning her exit strategy while I was busy working. And that's when it hit me. I had to act. I had set up a contingency plan years ago, something I hoped I'd never need but had known, deep down, was inevitable. I'd quietly protected myself without telling Dana. It wasn't illegal. It was just smart. And now it was time to activate it. With a few keystrokes, I froze all of our joint accounts and credit cards, triggering alerts for any unauthorized transactions. I had contacts in the bank who could expedite a fraud investigation. I had already made sure my assets were protected just in case something like this ever happened. And now I was ready to go through with it. Divorce, fraud, the whole damn mess. I could feel the weight of everything shifting. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my life, my security, and the woman I had trusted. I couldn't afford to ignore the truth any longer. And so, I took the first step, doing what I had been quietly preparing for all along. I thought back to how it all started, how we met at that alumni event at the University of Iowa. She was vibrant, ambitious, everything I wasn't. I was freshly divorced, focused entirely on building my career as a forensic accountant, while Dana was this whirlwind of energy, someone who made everything around her seem so alive. She didn't care about the details of my work, the numbers I spent my days analyzing. She just wanted the lifestyle, the security I could provide. And I gave it to her. I helped her open her yoga studio, invested every penny I could spare to make her dream a reality. At the time, it felt good to support her, to see her succeed. But now, looking back, I couldn't help but wonder, was I doing it for her or was I doing it for me? Was I so eager to build this life with her that I missed the slow erosion of trust between us? I never questioned the lavish vacations, the expensive gifts, the luxury cars. I gave her what she wanted because it made her happy, or at least that's what I told myself. But as I sat in the quiet of my condo that night, the weight of the betrayal settled in. I had worked hard for everything we had. I sacrificed time, energy, and parts of myself to build a life we could enjoy. But Dana, she had been building something too, something separate from me, something I had never seen coming. Was I complicit in this? Did I enable her behavior by giving in to every request, every extravagant desire? By never questioning the choices she made? I always told myself it was about us, about building a life together. But now it felt like I had been nothing more than a stepping stone, a means to an end. And as much as it hurt, I began to question the foundation of our marriage. Was this love? Or was it just a partnership of convenience, held together by finances and the lifestyle we had built? I couldn't answer that anymore. What I did know was that the woman I thought I had known, the woman I had spent 15 years with, was no longer the person standing in front of me. And somewhere along the way, I had become a stranger to her too. The weight of the decision settled on my shoulders, but I knew what I had to do. I'd spent years building my career, protecting my financial future, and now I had to protect myself from someone I had trusted. The moment I activated that contingency plan, I felt a cold clarity wash over me. There was no going back. I logged into my financial management system, the one I'd custom built for my practice, but adapted for personal use. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I froze all joint accounts, all credit cards linked to both of us. No more access. No more transfers. Everything was locked down and I knew the consequences would be immediate. But I wasn't afraid. I was prepared. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in my hands, and made the call. "Jason," I said when he picked up, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside. "You remember that contingency plan we talked about 5 years ago?" He didn't hesitate. "It's time?" "Yeah," I replied. "It's time." I could hear him pause as if weighing the gravity of it. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said, the words firm now. "She just made her move. I need you to help me finish this." I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand for a moment. My brother had always been my partner in the financial side of things, the person who had my back when the numbers didn't add up. We'd planned this moment, hoped we'd never need it, but now it felt like everything was unfolding exactly as it had been mapped out. But there was still one more call I had to make. I dialed my mother's number, the voice on the other end filled with concern the moment she heard my tone. "Dana's left me," I said, my voice almost a whisper. "She took the money and moved my things out while she was supposed to be on vacation." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, Leonard," my mom said, her voice thick with sympathy. "But I can't say I'm surprised. What are you going to do?" I looked around the condo at the pictures on the wall, the empty space where we had once shared everything. "What I've been preparing to do for years," I replied quietly. "Protect what's mine." And with that, the first chapter of this nightmare was over. I wasn't just reacting to her betrayal anymore. I was in control, moving forward with the divorce, securing my assets, and preparing for what came next. The cold, hard truth was settling in. This was real and it was happening. The phone rang again. And again. Dana's name flashed on the screen each time, a reminder of everything I'd just lost. The first few calls, I let them ring out, the vibrations on the table almost mocking me. But I knew what she was trying to do. She wanted to control the narrative, make me feel like I still owed her something. Like she could just waltz back into my life and erase the past few days, like nothing had changed. I didn't pick up. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. The calls kept coming, one after another. Her voice, the pleading, the pretending like nothing had shifted, like the betrayal wasn't already irreversible. I felt the frustration rising, but I forced myself to remain calm. I wasn't going to let her break me. Not now. Not after everything. I glanced over at the storage facility code she had sent me. The one she'd used to move my things. She thought she could erase me from this life, from our home, without a second thought. It stung in a way that nothing else could. She was already moving on. Already forgetting. But I wasn't going to let her take my memories, the things that mattered. The items that defined me, that defined us. The pictures, my father's watch, the books, the mementos. These weren't things she could just toss aside. These were the things I had earned, the things that carried meaning beyond the emptiness she was now trying to fill with someone else. I drove to the storage facility, the hollow space inside me growing with each mile. I used the code she had sent me, my fingers stiff as I opened the door to the unit. I stared at the boxes, stacked neatly, labeled with my name. But there was nothing else. No pictures, no family mementos. The items she had discarded from our life together were gone. It was like she had erased the last 15 years as if they meant nothing. As I grabbed 2 boxes of clothes and my laptop, the reality hit me hard. Dana had done more than leave me, she had discarded me. Completely. It was no longer just about money or betrayal. It was about her not even thinking I was worth keeping. And that cut deeper than anything she could have stolen from me. I didn't feel angry. Not anymore. I felt something colder. Something final. She had made her choice and now I was making mine. And there was no going back. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The $118,000 transfer was just the beginning, but it wasn't enough to explain everything. I knew Dana better than that. She wasn't just taking money, she was building something. Something that wasn't just about her. It was about Trey Harmon. The man she'd left me for. I opened my laptop, hands moving mechanically now. The pieces of this puzzle were starting to fall into place and I was ready to put them together. This wasn't just about financial betrayal anymore. This was about the web she had woven, the lies, and the deception that had been carefully planned. I started with what I knew, Trey Harmon. The fitness influencer who had been tagging Dana in photos for months, the man she had chosen over me. I pulled up his social media accounts, the usual glamorous shots of him at his gym, working out with his followers, living the life Dana had seemed to want. But I wasn't interested in his smile or his muscles. I was interested in his business. A few searches and I was deep into the financial details of Trey's company, Harmon Fitness. It didn't take long for me to find discrepancies. Trey's business was struggling, buried under debt that was barely keeping it afloat. Maxed out credit cards, a lease he couldn't afford, loans that were piling up. But what really caught my eye was Dana's name, signed as a co-signer on several loans. I leaned forward, my eyes scanning the pages of financial records. Dana had co-signed on a car loan with him 2 months ago. She had also been involved in multiple loans for his business, using our joint account as a backdoor to secure funding. I couldn't believe it at first. This wasn't just about a relationship. It was about her leveraging me, using our marriage to secure better financial terms for her new partner. She was so sure of herself, so certain I wouldn't find out. But I had found out. And with every piece of information I uncovered, it felt less like betrayal and more like a calculated move on her part. This was about money, sure. But it was also about control, about Dana taking everything she could from me and making sure I had no power left when she walked away. I closed the laptop for a moment, the weight of what I had just uncovered pressing down on me. But I wasn't done. I wasn't even close. There was more to find. More to uncover. Dana had thought she could outsmart me, but I was ready now. Ready to take back what was mine, and ready to make sure she understood the price of her actions. I couldn't just sit back and let this play out any longer. Trey Harmon needed to know exactly what he was getting himself into. He'd been living in this perfect little world where everything looked shiny and successful, but the truth was, he was drowning. And Dana had dragged me into it. I drove to his gym the next morning, feeling that tight knot of resolve in my stomach. The place was exactly what I expected. Sleek, modern, the walls plastered with motivational quotes and Trey's smiling face. His gym members were all in their 20s, wearing the latest workout gear, snapping selfies between half-hearted sets. They had no idea what was about to hit them. Trey spotted me right away, that confident, practiced smile creeping across his face as he walked toward me, hand outstretched. "You must be Leonard," he said, voice all smooth and polished, like he was trying to sell me something. I didn't shake his hand. I wasn't here to be polite. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm, the weight of everything I had just uncovered hanging heavily between us. He led me to his office, a glass-walled space that looked like it was meant to impress, but I could see right through it. We sat across from each other, and I put the folder down on his desk, the documents in front of me, the culmination of all the digging I'd done. I didn't waste time. "This is every financial document connecting you to Dana. Loans, credit cards, leases, all co-signed using our marital assets as collateral," I said, watching his face closely. His smile faltered as he picked up the folder, flipping through the pages. "I don't understand," he said, his voice suddenly tight, the confidence slipping away. "These are legitimate business arrangements between Dana and me." I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. "Maybe, but the banks approved those loans based on our combined assets and income. Assets that you no longer have access to. Our joint accounts are frozen. Your business is under threat now because of Dana's actions. And your loans?" I paused for a moment, letting the weight of it sink in. "They're about to be called in." Trey's face went white as the realization hit him. "But she told me you had plenty of money. She said you were fine with it." His voice was shaky now, like he was trying to hold on to the fantasy he'd built. I didn't flinch. "Money's never been the issue, Trey. Trust. And now you're about to learn a very expensive lesson in due diligence." He swallowed hard, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. "So what do you want?" I didn't need anything from him. "Nothing from you," I replied coolly. "I just thought you should know what's coming. The banks will be calling and they'll want their money back. Fast." Trey's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing with anger, but I wasn't done yet. "And Dana? She thought she could walk away from this without facing the consequences. But she's in this with you. And now so are you. You're about to lose everything." I stood up to leave but paused at the door, turning back to him. "One last thing. When Dana moved out, she took a few things that matter to me. Family photos, my father's watch, things money can't replace. I'll expect them back." He stared at me for a long moment but said nothing. I didn't expect an apology or an acknowledgement. In the end, I knew he was just another pawn in Dana's game. I walked out of the gym, the air feeling strangely light around me, knowing the next chapter of this mess was about to unfold. Trey wouldn't be the only one paying the price. And Dana? She had no idea what was coming next. The days after my confrontation with Trey felt like a blur, but the momentum was building. My attorney called me in the afternoon, her voice calm but with an edge of satisfaction. "We found something interesting," she said. "Dana's been siphoning money from your joint account for over a year now. Small transfers at first, then bigger ones. All of them traced back to multiple accounts, some of them to her personal savings, but most of them to a business LLC registered to Trey Harmon. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the discovery hitting me like a slap. I had known something wasn't right, but hearing it laid out like this was another level of betrayal. Not only had she taken the money, but she had been systematically diverting funds to cover Trey's failing business. All of it had been funded by me, and Dana had knowingly used our marital assets to prop up her new life. It wasn't just financial infidelity anymore, it was outright fraud. I felt a strange sense of clarity in that moment. This wasn't about salvaging any kind of relationship. This was about ensuring I wasn't left with nothing when the dust settled. Dana had already moved on. Now it was time for me to do the same. When the divorce proceedings began, my attorney wasted no time. She presented the evidence, detailed accounts of Dana's financial misconduct, including forged signatures on loan documents and fraudulent transfers from our joint accounts. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. Dana's attorney couldn't even make a decent argument to counter it. Dana had no leg to stand on. I met with my attorney to discuss the settlement. There was no need to drag things out. I had no intention of giving Dana anything she didn't deserve. I offered her the yoga studio, the one she had built with my money, and the car, but not a dime in alimony. She had already drained more than enough from me, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with anything more. When Dana's attorney came back with their counteroffer, it was what I expected. More demands, more attempts to leverage sympathy. But I stood firm. There was nothing left to negotiate. I had already given her more than I ever should have. And in the end she signed. Without an argument. She took the studio and the car, but she wouldn't get a penny more. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about showing her and showing myself that I was done. No more manipulation. No more games. Dana had thought she could have it all, but now she would learn what it meant to cross the line. The moment the papers were signed, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't victory exactly. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was just final. For the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of the past 15 years lift. The strings that had tied me to her, to our life together, were finally cut. And for the first time I could breathe. The divorce was settled, the financial ties severed. Dana had her yoga studio, her car, and whatever she thought she could take with her. But for me, it wasn't about the money anymore. It had never been. What I wanted, what I needed, was closure. And I'd gotten it. I didn't feel angry anymore, not like I had in the beginning. I wasn't looking for revenge or to make her regret what she'd done. No, the only person I had to answer to now was me. It was a strange kind of peace, a quiet realization that I was capable of so much more than I'd ever allowed myself to believe. I moved out of the hotel I'd been staying in, the one that had been my refuge after everything fell apart, and into a small craftsman house near downtown Des Moines. It wasn't much, nothing fancy, just a house with good bones that needed some work. The kind of project that would keep my hands busy, my mind occupied, and my thoughts from drifting back to the past. It wasn't about forgetting, it was about moving forward, one step at a time. I spent my evenings working on the house, sanding down wood, putting up fresh paint, fixing things that had been broken. The work was grounding. It gave me something to focus on, something to pour my energy into. And in those quiet moments, with the smell of fresh paint in the air and the sound of my tools working, I felt a sense of control that had been absent from my life for so long. I heard from mutual friends about Dana. She'd moved to Colorado to start fresh, taking Trey with her. She posted pictures on Instagram of mountain views and inspirational quotes about new beginnings. It seemed like she was trying to rebuild, to move on in her own way. But nothing she did or said could change what had happened. I was done with her. As for Trey, his gym had been sold to a national chain. He'd moved to Miami to expand his brand. No one mentioned the fraud, the debts, or the way he had been caught up in Dana's web. People rarely talk about failure after all. One Saturday, my brother Jason stopped by to help me install some cabinets in the kitchen. We worked together, the rhythm of measuring and cutting making the silence between us comfortable. He asked if I'd heard from Dana, and I shrugged. No, I said. And I don't expect to. You could have taken her for everything, you know, Jason said, his voice thoughtful. The fraud charges alone would have ensured that. I shook my head. What would be the point? I asked, meeting his eyes. She's no longer my problem. We fell back into the work, the sound of tools filling the air, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I felt truly at ease. Later that evening, after Jason had left, I sat on the back porch with a glass of bourbon, the neighborhood quiet around me. It was different from the upscale community Dana had insisted on. This felt more real, more grounded. The stars above felt closer here, like they belonged to me. I thought about everything, the years with Dana, how I had allowed her to define my life, my worth. How I had noticed the signs, but I had chosen to ignore them, to convince myself that things would get better. And then, when the moment came, I had been ready. Ready to protect myself. Ready to walk away. It wasn't victory. It wasn't defeat. It was freedom. The next morning, I called my office and told them I'd be taking 2 weeks off. I didn't have any real plan. I just needed to go. I packed my truck, locked up the house, and headed north. Maybe I'd go fishing at the cabin in Minnesota. Maybe I'd just drive. There was no itinerary, no expectations, just the open road ahead. And for the first time in years, no invisible ledger of resentments to balance. I didn't know what the future would bring, but I was ready for it. Without Dana. Without the life I had built for us. I was starting over. And that felt like the only thing that mattered.